the cloud. Okay, that is recording. So how are you, Tony? That's how we
Very well,
start
very well,
everything. Yeah, we
very
always
well. I
smart.
am fine, but I think it's important for me to reciprocate by asking you the same. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm okay. And I think I actually mean it when I sat, as I was waiting for you to come on, I actually sat and thought, and I was like, I'm okay. I'm
Yeah,
actually okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's
yeah,
always
I really
important.
am. Yeah. So yeah, so for the next 30 days, we've been asking people, are you okay? Just to find out how they're doing, right?
Mhm.
Because so oftentimes we take it for granted that people are fine, but people are not fine. And I think one of the reasons why I got in touch with you when I wanted to do this was because I saw a tweet from you talking about. I always get your stuff from tweets anyway. You were talking. You said you were in Ginger, and you were
Yeah.
talking to. You saw a gentleman, and you started talking to him. Just first walk me through that. What actually happened?
Well, it was one of those random, interesting events. I mean, I was seated at a place called Bobon, just seated with my cousin, enjoying ourselves, trying to have a discussion amongst ourselves. And this gentleman approaches us, and I don't know,
Mm,
he seemed like he knew me or something. I'm not quite sure, but he approached and said he just wanted us to talk. He just wanted to talk and just wondered if he could join us. And
yeah.
we allowed him to join us, and we began speaking about anything, everything, the general life issues, the general life
Mm,
stuff. How are you? What's going on in your life? What do you do? And then in all of this, he comes or breaks down and says, I just really, 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 really needed to talk. I really need to talk. I am going through a lot right now. My mother,
yeah.
who has been really taking care of our family ever since my father died years ago, has been
Mm,
hit by a stroke, and I am taking care of her. I've had to leave my job. I've had to leave everything to come and take care of her. It's very expensive. It's very tasking on myself, but also at the same time, I have my wife who has abandoned me. My wife has left me and gone back to the UK. So I have no one as a support system in my life. I mean, so from
mm,
understanding that side of his story, it was quite interesting. And then he went on further to tell us how he lost his father, because of course, the question then is, where's your father? And the father died when he was still a kid, killed by a family member over
mm,
land or a house.
yeah.
And all of these things are things that have been in him, or he's been harboring these feelings and sentiments for quite a while. So, I mean, that discussion for me was quite interesting, because it made me then realize that there are a lot of people out there who are carrying along or carrying with them so many issues. And all they want is just a way of putting it out, like
Yeah.
a vessel that can allow for that to be, put out,
Yeah.
and that can really manifest or come through decent conversations where you sit down, listen. And of course, for me, as in on my side, is the whole element of empathy.
Mm, mm,
How about I go into his world and understand where he's coming from to be able to support him, but also just to listen more. You know, a
yeah.
lot of the time, what's happening right now is we are in a world that is surrounded by so much attention seeking. You get out,
Yeah.
there's an advert here, there's a billboard here trying to attract your attention. You sit in your car, the first thing you listen to is an advert of something, someone talking to you. You're talking. We haven't sat down to pause, you know, just to stop and listen to ourselves, listen to people who need to be listened to. And I think
Yeah.
we have run around what we think is cool, what we think is dope. Everyone wants to only relate with what's so nice and fancy,
Mm,
not giving accommodation or not accommodating people who want to deal with certain particular smaller issues, or what we assume are smaller issues but are big issues to them. you know
yeah.
so I think
Yeah.
it's very important, the whole aspect of listening. So that experience for me was a great one. It was a personal one. And
Yeah.
up to now, I'm glad. Whenever I'm in Ginger or whenever I travel back, I always try to make it a point to meet with him,
Yeah.
check on him. How is he doing? I mean,
Yeah.
how are they taking care of the situation? You know, I mean, this is a guy who said he had contemplated suicide several times.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
just the thought
Mm,
of contemplating suicide, just the thought is
yeah.
something really, really crazy. You know,
Mm,
and
yeah.
a lot of people are going through a lot right now. When we talk about mental health, we're talking about the crazy, crazy issues that people are going through in their lives at the moment. You talked about
Mm,
mental health and how people were perceiving it those days in terms of madness. But you see, it's not that anymore. Mental health is really about everything that's happening around us. Right now, people have lost their jobs. People have to
yeah.
take their kids back to school. I mean, the guys going for candidate
Yeah.
classes. You have no job. You have to take all these, say, two kids to school. I mean, everyone you're running to is telling you they're in the same situation. So you can't, I mean, how do you then go back and relate around your family in a normal way? A family that
Yeah.
demands more. So
Yeah.
again, how do we understand these issues without really delving into the lives of people? So I think it's important to listen, to listen
Yeah.
more, to understand more, to see how we can provide clarity to a lot of people out there who just want to just seek clarity. They have so many
Yeah.
ideas, so many things going on in their head. All they just want is clarity. And by the way, they can't do it on their own. You
Yeah.
understand? They
Yeah.
can't do it on their own. You just need
Yeah.
to sometimes sit down with someone to provide you that basis for clarity, you
Yeah.
know? And this is what I think society needs to do more. And that for me is, I think, what I can say out of that experience, but also in terms of life, in terms
Yeah.
of life,
I think,
that's what we need.
yeah, I think it was very powerful, and even coming, it wasn't just that you spoke to somebody, but you also came and you shared, via social media, a place that is kind of like you said, we live in a world where everybody's demanding our attention. And it wasn't until you said it right now, like these days when I drive, I turn the radio off unless there's something specific because I just want that moment,
Same here.
really. Yeah,
Same here.
I just want that moment to be alone with my thoughts, process everything. If I'm driving to a meeting, I want to make sure I get there with clarity of mind. If I'm leaving a meeting or something, I'm going back home. Maybe there's been a disappointment. Before I take that issue back into the home, I just want to make sure that I can distress and make sure that when I get home, I'm actually at the best, for my family. So I think, you also touched on a very important issue, which is about, what has happened in this period. And I know when lockdown started, you and I had a bit of a chat.
Mm.
And I think specifically, we're looking around, the area of work and productivity. People have lost their jobs. So I guess, I know you're in the thick of things, working with all kinds of people, not just employees, but businesses, everybody who is going through, and they're going through their own different type of turmoil, every single
Yeah.
thing. How do you do it for you yourself?
Whoa.
How do you cope?
Uh, it's quite an interesting one. I think it's all about really focusing on just doing the small things fast, you know,
Okay.
small
Yeah.
things fast, and also focusing on people's small issues fast. Because you see,
Yeah.
it's the small issues that sometimes pile up and become a
Yeah.
huge thing at the end of the day, and you fail to deal with that. I have
Yeah.
dealt around businesses for the last 5, 6 months, and to be honest with you, it's a bad picture for many of them. Many of them have had to close shop. Many of them have had to contemplate
Mm,
how to stay afloat. Now, a huge challenge comes with the issue of cash flow, for instance. But you do understand that these situations necessitate for you to probably utilize your business funds for personal use.
yeah.
You have a shop that has been closed for the last 4 months, but you have rent to pay at home. You have food to pay.
Mm,
You have things to pay. You have people to take care of. God forbid you don't fall sick and you have probably no
mm,
insurance. You understand?
mm,
So I think it's just been interesting to see how businesses have tried to struggle through this. It's also been also a great one for us because on my side, I think it's been the whole discussion or discourse on how do you evolve as a business? How do you use this situation, this crisis, to do things differently? Crisis
mm.
is crisis. Linda, crisis is
Yes,
no
I
more.
mean,
It's just like how night follows day. It's just like
yeah.
how seasons, summer follows, spring or
Spring.
whatever,
Yeah.
But just think about it. These are seasons. The question is, how are we preparing ourselves for those seasons that are not the best.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
businesses, as people that are surviving now, things are starting to get back to normal. But how are we doing things differently? Are we still doing things like we were doing them 10 months ago, or we have become wiser and
Mm.
understood that it is important for us to, number one, save for uncertainty, number
Yeah.
two, live as healthy as we can to be able to withstand or make sure that we're able to be productive. Number three, have the right relationships around us. I don't know if you've been seeing my posts, but almost every week I have this simple reminder on Twitter of always OQP,
Mm.
only quality people. Are you
Yes.
surrounding yourself with people who are nourishing your brain, your mind, or you are in this defeatist attitude where you are now moving back into yourself and dealing with your issues on your own? You know,
Mm.
that for me
Mm.
is a very, very key thing. So for the businesses and the guys we've been interacting with, what we're saying is it has happened. It is going to happen anyway. But how do we
Yeah.
get out of this situation? How do we prepare you to get out of this situation? You
Yeah.
know, I'll use the analogy of an ant. An ant is one of the most interesting animals
Mm-hmm.
or creatures.
Insects. Yeah.
An ant, however small it is, doesn't give up. When it's pushing a small boulder or small whatever food item or whatever, it will push and push and push. And if it fails, it will circumvent it and do whatever it takes to push it. If it fails, it calls in troops, other ants to come and support it to push the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Persistence, resilience, never giving up. But number two is also the idea of saving. An ant, the time it's busiest, the time it's working most is during the
Mm.
summertime or during the dry
Yeah.
times because it is
Mm.
stocking up, saving, putting away for the cold times, the uncertain times, the bad times.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
see, so that for me in terms of attitude is quite important. But again, I cannot push that attitude into anyone's space and assume that it works for everyone. I think
Mm.
it's also important for us to understand that context is important. Everyone is fighting their own demons. Mine might be a smaller one, yours is a bigger one, or yours is shaped in a certain way. But it's also about understanding how best we can support each other to deal with these demons. A
Yeah.
lot of the time, when you talk to people, a lot of the time, the issues we're facing are issues that are not even that important because the guys we're talking to have been there several times and they can advise us better or best on how to
Mm.
maneuver.
Mm.
You do realize that,
Mm.
right? So,
Yeah.
so, so what you
Yeah.
consider to be very, very huge or a huge issue in your life, someone else has probably lived it and lived it even worse than you. So by
Yeah.
speaking out, by really coming out to say, this is who I am, I really need to speak to someone to share what I'm going through, you'll find that you actually cut a lot of shortcuts in terms of what you're
Yeah.
dealing with. Again, when
Yeah.
I talk of shortcuts, I'm not talking of shortcuts in the sense of shortcuts. You have to go through the whole process of dealing with your
Yes.
issue. But what I'm
Yes.
saying is
Yeah.
that there are
So,
people who have been through the same and can advise best on how
yeah.
to get it out, how
Yeah.
to, deal with the issue at hand. And I think that's what's really, really key and important, Linda.
Okay. So I think one of the things that you touched on about is the aspect of hope. And even
Mm,
in mental health, when people are suffering from mental illness or mental health issues, one of the things that they encourage them is to have hope and to know that, like you said, crises come and go. They come in waves. And many of the times they are temporary, or they
mm,
will change and they will iterate into something that's actually different. So it's good to hear that people are gathering and to even see you sort of like leading the charge with others and trying to encourage them to sort of think differently, and hopefully as we move forward,
mm,
we will rebuild. But now, let's now think about us as individuals. We've been through all these emotions the past 6 months. We went through lockdown, then it eased up. Then some people went back to work, others may have lost their jobs. Where do you find the drive to keep yourself productive? Because I can tell you, I'm the kind of person, like, when stuff is happening, I tend to withdraw. It's like I like to be like I like solitude. I like being alone. Yeah. So for me, lockdown was precious. Yeah. Lockdown was a very precious period because I didn't have to interact with people. and I didn't have to make an excuse of not being
Mm.
out, like not hanging out. I'm not here and stuff. I was like, no, this is perfect for me. So I personally, I don't want to say I enjoyed it, but I was okay with it, you know. But even in that enjoyment, my productivity went down severely, severely, and I struggled. I think even now I still struggle because even during that time, deadlines were fluid. You know, people are not so harsh. You could tell somebody,
Yeah.
you know, I haven't done it. You know, but so how do you get productivity, like from a personal space, but also maybe if we can take it further from an organization? How do you make sure you can drive productivity and make sure you keep people or get people into top form?
Right. Right. You know, one very thing I'm very particular about is becoming better as an individual. You know, that's the
Yeah,
first thing. Now, many people
yeah,
consider productivity to be what you are doing for the job and what you have to do for the job. In
okay,
my world, my mind, me as Tony Otoa, productivity means really taking care of myself, really
yeah,
becoming better for myself, becoming
yeah,
better in the sense that the job then desires or needs me
mm,
more than I actually need the job.
yeah,
So, you know, a lot of the time I keep telling people it's not really what you are getting from the job, it is what you're becoming from the job. So,
yeah,
these last months have really been about how productive or how can I actually investigate myself more to see the kind of potential I have.
yeah,
I don't know, but you've, I think, seen my SME Connect channel. Okay.
yeah,
This
mm,
is something that I never thought I could do, you know, talking to businesses and
mm,
having it taken up. I mean, we began recording off a mobile phone, and now
yeah,
it's on urban TV. We are now
yeah,
producing it for bigger, larger audiences. It's on urban TV.
yeah,
That for me is discovering the other bits of myself that I never thought I knew about myself.
yeah,
But also, you know, in that bit of solitude that you talked about, which is quite important, those are important moments because those are moments when you really start questioning yourself and ask yourself, am I on the right path? This
yeah,
job you're talking about in terms of productivity, is it the job that I want to keep going back to every single day? Maybe that's where the problem is. Maybe that's where your anger or your frustration is coming from.
mm,
But if you just tweaked that, because I'll tell you that there's some champions in this period who have made so much money, but also in terms of personal development, have transformed their lives. And
mm,
that, of course, comes from asking yourself the question of, is this what I want? Now,
but,
let me just speak about myself.
mm,
I am a stoic. I think you know that. I believe
yeah,
in this whole attitude of one, the virtues of stoicism, wisdom, you know, learn more, read more, dive into people's ideas without judging. Get a different mindset of the world away from yours, you know, so you can actually understand different views, you can understand different things and decrease on your bias. You
yeah,
see, so I
mm,
can't judge you because at least I have understood where you're coming from, you
yeah,
see. But if I don't
mm,
have that wisdom, it's difficult for me to be in a situation from that. That's number one. Number two,
mm,
judgment. How do I deal with issues of judgment? I mean, how do I deal with justice rather.
mm,
How do I deal with people who are less than me in terms of they have less than me or they don't have the power and influence that I have? How do I judge them?
yeah,
You understand? I mean,
yeah,
they have done something wrong. Okay, but maybe there's a reason why they have done something wrong.
yeah,
So it's very important. The number three is the whole idea of perseverance, persistence, trying to keep going. Because at the end of the day, we are in an unfortunately dangerous world. It's not even, and it will never be
mm,
even. But it's how we approach that situation that will get our minds at peace.
yeah,
If Linda has called me at 5 a.m., shouting at me on the phone at 5 a.m., how do I react? Because you see,
mm,
how I react will influence my day, the rest of
yeah,
my
for the
day.
rest of the day, absolutely, yeah,
So I can choose to tell Linda, you know what, Linda, I'm going to hang up. We'll talk after 5 hours. Or I can choose to shout back at Linda. If I shout back
yeah,
at Linda, we're all angry during the day. We haven't had anything constructive. If I shut off my phone, Linda will probably call back after 3 hours and apologize and speak to me as a human being.
mm,
but it's how I reacted. You see, and
Yeah.
that's what's really
Yeah.
key. So even in life, all of these things, they will happen. Crisis will happen. Bad situations will happen. But how you react to that
To
is
those
what makes
situations.
you
Yeah.
at peace or
Yeah.
distinguishes you from the scenario that's going on. And again, Linda, I'll also tell you something interesting about Stoicism. If you look at people like
Mm.
Marcus Aurelius, one of the Roman emperors, who is a very great uh, person when it comes to the idea of Stoicism, the man lost everything, lost family, lost lost his men at battles, lost almost everything, and yet he was still a happy man at peace with the
Yeah.
belief that, you know what, it is how I react to this that
Yeah.
will make me or break me. So it's
Mm.
very important. Our reaction towards things, our emotions towards things, our affiliations towards things, that is what really resonates in our mind and destroys us or makes us. So I think it's
Yeah.
very important for us to think about how we react. So personally, for me on my side, that is how I take life. That's how I deal with life. I know every morning there are people who are not going to cheer for me, but how do I react towards them,
Mm.
right? Should I
Yeah.
go out and just say I have haters out here? I'm also going to hate on you.
Oh
I'm going
yeah.
to hate on
Yeah.
you. Well, that doesn't help anyone, It actually
Yeah.
goes to make you sadder, makes you
Mm.
waste much of your time thinking about things that are not important. And by the way, assumptions and our thoughts are quite a bad thing sometimes. If you
Mm-hmm.
think about it, almost
Yeah.
90% to 99% of the things you worried about have never happened.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
But imagine how much time you've wasted thinking
Thinking
about that.
about them, the
You see,
possibility of them
your
actually
time,
happening.
your
Yeah.
emotions, your relationships, because you are spending a huge amount of your thought process on irrelevant things.
Things
So I
that don't
think for
matter.
me,
Yeah.
it's really about that attitude, which is very much also a personal development mindset. How do you want to
Mm.
think about things? Why do you want to think about things that way? How can you best improve how you think about certain situations? That will then make you the master of your own thought process, the master of your ship.
Yeah.
And again,
Okay.
the biggest challenge for most young people, especially the young people, is perceptions of themselves. And they gain validation from the outside. You see?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if I tweet and Linda doesn't reply
Find.
back or send something saying this is cool or whatever, I get
Yeah.
depressed. I get pissed off
Yeah.
because I'm thinking, wow, I haven't really made myself, you know. But why should that be the case? How about that
Yeah.
validation coming from yourself? Because you see,
Yeah.
from you, the rest becomes attracted to you. People are not
Mm.
attracted to sad people. People are attracted to people
Mm.
who are full of life and like themselves. And trust
Happy
me,
people.
when you start to like yourself so much, people are attracted to you. So
They'll
I think
come.
that's what I can say about that. Yeah.
One of the things that you said was about judgment. And in this last bit where you're talking about young people, it's very interesting that there was a time when in terms of my work, you're speaking to people and they're telling you, I am looking for an employee, but young people don't want to work. There is that attitude. And I think for a very long time, I subscribed to that as like, young people don't understand a job is a job. Like, just get a job. You need to be on the track and get a job and figure it out as you go along. But I have discovered that we have a generation of people who, for them, a job is not a job. If they are not connected to their passion, they don't want to do it. They would rather leave it. But then at the very same time, there are those who are brave enough to look in the mirror and say, this job is not right for me. I'm not going to do it. But then a lot of people actually fear being judged, in the sense that, oh, you got a job in this place, you didn't stay there, but they didn't want to do it, as well. So I think even as part of what we are doing here, when we talk about conversation, like we started from the importance of, speaking to people, but two, listening, having empathy, and responding without judgment. Because we had this very same conversation about societal pressure and how it's killing us, and
Mm.
especially men. The things like you talked about, that things are happening around you and you're seeking your validation from all these sources that are around you. And I think personally for me, I came to a certain point in my life where I was like, these are the things I'm working for. A, B, C, D, E, right? All the other things I don't need, and it doesn't matter how you lecture me, it will go, I will listen because I'm polite sometimes. I will listen, but I will not take it to heart. I'm like, we'll have a conversation, we can have a debate about it, but generally speaking, I'm comfortable in the things that I know, in the things that I need, in the things that I actually want. But now let's look at the outlook, like from the business side of things, particularly. Where are we at? What's the outlook? Let's give some people a bit of hope. What should they look forward to going
I
forward?
think in terms of what they need to look forward to, first and foremost, it begins with them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they thinking about changing for the better? Are they thinking about utilizing this experience from the experience we've just been through to better their businesses or better their livelihoods? It's one thing for you to have hope and just go back
Mm,
to doing the same things like you were doing them 10 months ago and forget that society or the environment rather has changed.
that's strange.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The environment has
Mm,
changed. I was talking to some guys, some traders in through their organization Casita, Kampala City Traders Association, and they were saying, "But the customers are not coming." And I
what do you
laughed
need to
because I
do?
thought, are these guys insane? Do they not
Yeah.
realize that people are actually home now? Amaduka tugatwala waba customer. We are taking the shops to the
Yeah.
customer. So the
Yeah.
digital platforms, e-commerce, and all of these are the great ways of putting yourself out there. And by the way, they're so cheap. But
Yeah.
you see, these are opportunities that some businesses are not taking into consideration. So you can just
Yeah.
act like a normal guy who will pray to God for God to deliver that thing, or
Yeah.
act about it and let God
Yeah.
support you and give you guidance on how to make it happen.
Well, the
So I
Bible
can talk
even
about
says God helps those who help themselves.
absolutely. So I can talk about
Yeah.
hope all day. And yes, we can talk about hope till morning. But for as long as you're not doing anything within your realm, within your influence, to make a difference in your business, in your personal life, that becomes a challenge. Now, just going back just to what you were talking about, in fact, talking about the jobs and the young people and young people wanting to go for what they believe in, same
Mm,
thing. And again, I totally support a lot of young people refusing to go into jobs that they're not passionate about, because
yeah.
the fact that they can actually synchronize their mindset around it and know that it's important
This
not
is
to do that at that age, it's a good thing for
yeah.
many of us or many of our generation. People started going into their passions at 40, yeah,
Mm,
40,
mm,
45, and they still struggle. Now imagine if they had begun crafting that passion at 21, 22. By the time
yeah.
they're 30, they're masters of that craft. So a
Yeah.
lot of the time, I think we judge. And then again, for many of the guys who jump into a situation and don't want to be judged for leaving it, at the end of the day, it still comes back to haunt you, because that is the burden, that is the ghost you're going to have to carry along for a long time. You go into this
Mm,
office, you are not excited about being there, but you sit in from 8 to 5, and yet you have a deep-seated, amazing talent or
yeah.
ability to do something where you can be recognized, you can be
Yeah.
articulated, or you can be promoted by the people around you, the people in the community, the country. I think it's very
Mm,
important for us to realize that. But people have to people have to change, and it's a whole mindset paradigm shift. How do
yeah.
you start viewing the world of business? How do you start viewing the world of your personal life? How do you start viewing your work life? You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
this. If you recall the first lockdown where we were stopped from moving anywhere, there were no cars, nothing, and everything. Hey, for many people, it was a shock, including
Yeah.
myself. I
Uh-huh.
had never in a million years thought my life would just come to a standstill, like stop. You know,
Some of us were thriving.
Is that-
Yeah.
exactly. But again, what happened during that time? For some,
Yeah.
it was a state of personal growth, time to
Yeah.
really sit back, reflect. This job that I'm doing, does it really make sense? Hey, but
Mm-hmm.
because again, I keep telling people, just like the Great Depression, COVID, lockdown, the initial one for the first 2, 3 months was a
Mm,
great start for every human being, because for the
yeah.
first time we were at the same level. If it is like running a race, we were at the starting line. however much
Yeah.
money you had and you fell sick, you couldn't fly out of this country. However
Yeah.
money or resources you had, you couldn't do anything. You couldn't buy help. You couldn't buy anything. Everyone was at the same level. In terms of
Mm.
business, all businesses seemed to crash, meaning even a guy with a startup idea had the opportunity to start at that same line as
Yeah.
compared, with a business that has been around for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
It was an
Yeah.
interesting time for them to start afresh. And for them, for the startup guy, if he had his innovation in place, his e-commerce platforms and all that, he would actually be way ahead of this guy. That by the time we are
Mm-hmm.
beginning to ease and the lockdown, like now, this guy is way ahead.
Yeah.
But like human beings, we love comfort. We love
Mm-hmm.
to be careful. We love to wait for Linda. We say her, which when Linda ngachikwaseyo, I will try it.
Mm-hmm.
Let me
I'll
first wait
try.
for
Yeah.
Linda to make it happen. If it works for Linda, then I can try it out because I think I'll have known that it works out. You see?
My cousin has a joke along those lines. He says that if you see a business and an Indian is
Yeah.
not doing it, don't get into it. Don't do it. Yeah, if an Indian is not, it's like, do you see Indians doing taxi business? It's a tight business, in terms of the business model. So I think the question I would pose for you, especially for your community, what we are doing at Thrive, really, like you said, lockdown was a
Mm.
time to reassess. We were going
Yeah.
in a certain direction, very methodical. We're following the protocol, the science, how it was actually dictating. But then
Yeah.
the need changed, and we had to quickly iterate into something else and say, you know what, let's go with the flow. So now, as part of going to the flow,
Yeah.
as an organization, what we are trying to do is trying to support people become aware of the importance of mental health, but from a
Mm.
preventative perspective, but also early detection. Because again, um, if we arrest these issues very early enough, we stop people from going down the road of mental illness, as well, but also deal with those who actually have mental illness. How can Thrive make itself relevant to the community within which you work? How can we
Um,
sort of like support you along those lines?
I think I'll be very honest with you. Ever since lockdown happened, for many businesses, the idea was not just about business survival, but the mindset of the entrepreneur.
Okay.
Many entrepreneurs couldn't configure what was going on. You can
Yeah.
imagine the mental challenge that they've been going
Yeah.
through, and they're still going through.
Yeah.
So I think what Thrive can do is really come into this business space. I've been
Yeah.
training business for the last 2 years and a half. You know, one thing we had never done, think
Mm.
about mental or psychological training for businesses. Can you imagine?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yes.
do you realize how relevant it is today?
Yes.
Do you
Absolutely.
realize that right now, in fact, the first module that we are now offering is one that speaks to attitude and psychological state and
Yeah.
mindset, you know?
Mm.
And these are very important things because for as long as we don't factor them in, you have people who are so messed up.
Yeah.
You can run a great business, it's making money, but for as long as your mental faculties are not right in terms of how you are running your personal life, your business, or your surroundings, it becomes a very
Mm.
complicated issue. And again,
Yeah.
this is again what we're saying. As part of our program, we would love for Thrive to come in, give you space to speak to these businesses, the business owners. What are
Yeah.
their challenges
Yeah.
beyond money? Because you see, for you to make more money, you have to be mentally stable. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're not mentally stable, you're not creative. You're all over the
Yeah.
place. You're
It's
failing to
actually
have.
there's a concept that is really being driven very heavily in the UK. It's so you're a guy who goes to the gym, so
Yes.
they're looking at mental fitness. So in the
Yes.
very same way you strive for physical fitness, they are also trying to cultivate a culture of mental fitness, where there are things you can
Absolutely.
actively do to promote your
Absolutely.
mental fitness. Yeah, as well. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Linda,
yes,
Linda,
yeah,
the brain or the mind is like muscles. The more you
mm,
train them, the more resilient they become, the more stronger
yeah.
they become, the more
The better
um
it functions.
the better they function. But the moment you
Yeah,
ignore them, it's just like anything that you ignore, it withers.
yeah,
It stops. It ceases to be strong. And I think
yeah,
in business, it's quite important. In
yeah,
business, it's quite important. Sorry for
Yeah.
that. Yeah, but in
It's
business, it's quite
okay.
important. Yeah.
Mm,
So I
yeah.
think holistically, what we need to do, especially for the business people, is to really understand the mindset as well. You
Yeah.
know, you'll
Yeah.
find many
Where
people
are
have
people
lost
at?
so
Yeah.
many
Mm,
people have lost so much, but they just don't even know where to start from. And yet, the starting point is right in front of them, but because they're so clouded with so much right here, they can't actually see the starting point.
yeah. There's a very dear friend of mine, a businessman. Of course, he has also gone through this whole thing. And it's so interesting being on that journey along with him, what he was
Mm,
thinking, like when everybody was thinking about how do we continue to do business? How do I continue to generate revenue? He was thinking of his lockdown exit plan. He was
mm,
like
mm.
3 months ahead. So he was working on a lockdown exit plan, which he's actually now executing. But also along that journey of executing, he had to come to terms with some realities to himself, for himself, and say, listen, I probably have to downsize in A, B, C, D areas. And he had to come to terms with that and make peace with that reality. And then
Absolutely.
yeah, and as part of that, he was like,
Absolutely.
why did I have all these things? I just kept adding
Abs-
and adding and getting myself into this situation. And
Absolutely.
he was like, yeah, I don't need this. I can operate at this level. There are these opportunities coming. This is the attitude I'm going
Mm,
with. I'm going in. I will not kill myself, right? I will not push myself or my business to a point that I cannot sustain simply because I want to secure something that I don't even know if I'm going to live to enjoy as well. So I'm
mm.
going to try and live
You
in the
know,
now.
you
And
know,
that, yeah. And so we speak like for an hour. Sometimes I'm like, ooh, time is going. But like you
yeah,
said, sometimes just offering somebody that listening ear. And maybe that's why they like to call me every so often, moreover for free. Anyway, it's business
yeah,
advice for free. But yeah, yeah,
yeah.
as
But I think
well.
Linda, it's very important to understand one thing. First of all, gratitude. Gratitude
Yeah,
for even the small things that you have, the small things that you have
yeah,
left. The fact that I can speak to you right now, hundreds of people, millions of people cannot do the same. The fact that you're
yeah.
breathing right now, there's someone who's dying or someone who's on oxygen can't actually
Mm,
breathe. You know,
mm-hmm.
gratitude for the small things first. In Stoicism, we're very clear about how we relate with things, especially these earthly things. At the end of the day, these are by the way things.
Yeah,
Our society has made it seem that possessions are what make you seem either affluent, rich, or wealthy, or recognizable in society. It might not be
yeah.
the case. Sometimes you'll
Mm.
actually find that you are better off with little than more.
With less, yeah.
And sometimes less is more,
Yes,
you
yeah.
know,
That's true. Yeah,
less is more. So it's how you want to relate with, the world. So again, if you're a business and you want to grow so big, it's a
yeah,
good thing. The question is, are you ready for what it takes to have
yeah,
or run a big business? And
yeah.
that is less of the time about money because money can always come, but it's
Mm,
about your mindset.
yeah,
This is where the game starts and ends.
yeah.
Because
Change our
the more
mindset.
you're bigger, the crazier the challenges are going to be. And that's what a lot of business people don't understand. So you get into
Mm,
something big and you say, Singana Linga Mania, I would have not gone this far. But it's important. And again, back to the idea of wisdom. Wisdom, you'll research, you'll analyze, you'll learn, you'll unlearn, and then you'll realize maybe I shouldn't actually be doing it that way. And maybe I should do it
mm-hmm.
this way. Very,
Yeah,
very small things, but very key to your calmness, your ability to say it's okay, your ability not to compare yourself with anyone else, because again, that's also a
yeah,
huge challenge for many people, comparing themselves to other people. And because
yeah,
what they consider as success from other people is what they want to portray in their lives. And yet we're all
yeah,
unique individuals.
yeah,
We're all unique individuals with amazing talents, amazing attributes, and that is who we are.
yeah.
Yeah,
These these conversations can go on for on and on. So I'm going to want to bring it to a close by asking you
sure.
5 questions, right?
Yeah.
Although we started with it, I'm going to ask it again. How have you been?
I've been
How
great.
have you been?
I am well.
Yeah.
I am happy. I am resolute. I am optimistic. I am energized. I'm excited.
Yeah. What drives you?
I think what really drives me is my family, first of all. I think that's one basis for, or one major driver. The fact that I have to stand out, be on the lookout for them. So because
Yeah.
of that, I have to be better myself. So that really
Yeah.
drives me every morning, or whenever, to really be the best of who I am.
Mm.
Yeah.
And when you're feeling down, when I'm feeling down,
When I'm feeling down, I reflect. I
mm,
reflect, take time off. Sometimes it's important to pause. I pause and come back strong.
mm, okay. I want, what do you want people to know?
So what do I want people to know? I think I want people to know that
Yeah.
um, nothing is permanent. All situations come and
Yeah.
go, just like day and night. Just prepare for the bad times, but always be optimistic and know that the good times will always be coming. And when they come, if you're prepared for them, they'll be amazing.
Okay. Complete this sentence. The economy is,
The economy is a little bit of a trick, but we shall get out of it. We shall make it happen.
yeah. Yeah.
We shall survive.
All right. Yeah. Oh, Tony, thank you so much for always being a
You're very
good
welcome.
sport. I hit you up and you're like, I'm in, but thank you so much. And let's see where we go from here.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
All right. Yeah. Take care.
All right, you too. Bye bye.
Bye. I stop.